It's time to invest with intent on the Welka Wealth Podcast. Join Tiffany Welka each week as she gives you guidance to align your faith, morals, and goals to make your financial plan a true success.
Thanks for listening to the Welka Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Welka. In Luke chapter 1, verse 45, it says, "Blessed is she who's believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her." Blessed is she. What has the Lord promised to you? Women are outliving men and amassing a greater share of the world's wealth every single year. According to Boston Consulting Group, women now control a third of the world's wealth. Further, they're accumulating wealth at a compound annual growth rate of 6.1% and adding $5 trillion to the global wealth pool every single year. I read an article in Time magazine a few years ago, actually, and it said that women that were born in 2015 or later have the potential to live to age 142 years old. 142. But let's look at this another way. A 65-year-old man today has a 50% chance of living at least to 85 and a 30% chance of living to 90. A 65-year-old woman has a 50% chance of living to 87 and a 30% chance of living to age 90. If you're a married couple, both age 65, there is a 50% chance that at least one of you will live to be age 91. And a 30% chance that one of you will live to be age 95. So, like I said, if you're going to be alive for another 10, 20, or 30 years, you've got to make sure that your sources of retirement income will be there to accommodate all of those extra years. So, what are the typical sources of retirement income that a lot of retirees have? The first one is that usually they have a personal retirement account like an IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, something like that that was through an employer plan or on your own. Second, most retirees count on Social Security as a major source of retirement income. And finally, some of us are even lucky enough to have pensions through our employers. Unfortunately, though, pensions are going the way of the CD or the VCR. After the 2008 crash, many of the Fortune 500 companies decided that it was way too expensive to provide pensions to their employees. Many of them, like the big three, for example, even went as far as to offer their employees a lump sum for foregoing their pensions altogether. And why is this? Because just as I mentioned, just as we talked about, they know that actuarially their employees would have an increasing chance of living longer and longer and longer, which meant that the company would have to keep paying that pension longer and longer. And so, as we have discussed previously, only about 1/4 of the Fortune 500 companies offer their employees pensions, and it's a safe bet that that number will only continue to decrease as it has been for the past 20 years. There are many retirement challenges that people are facing today. I know this, especially in a pandemic. The situation is especially pressing, though, for retired women as they face specific challenges in financial planning. Women typically outlive their spouses by 6 years, and therefore may have to live with the financial decisions made by their husbands or their partners unless they were involved in the financial planning. Pensions are continuing to decrease, so women and men alike may not have those to rely on in retirement. And because we're all living longer and longer, and remember, women typically outlive men, we may spend more years in retirement. And so, because of this, women, and again, men in some cases, may very well be funding their own health care for a longer time period. An income gap may also be a challenge at that time. This is when income provided by other sources, such as Social Security, pensions, or other retirement accounts that you have, might not be enough. And there's a few insurance products that can help to fill that gap. The first one is long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is an insurance policy that helps to pay the costs of long-term care expenses like home care, assisted living, or nursing home care. And this is important so that you don't spend everything you've saved your whole entire life for to use to pay off these expenses. The average cost of a nursing care facility in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County is about $75,000 to $100,000 a year. Is your estate ready for a cost like that? Another way to help protect that income gap from happening is to insure your retirement income. And a way to do that is with an insurance product called an annuity. An annuity is an insurance product that guarantees you a lifetime income stream so that you can become more confident in your retirement stages of your life so that you'll never run out of money. You'll be able to live the lifestyle that you've planned your whole entire life. That's why we all work, to make sure that we have enough money to sustain the lifestyle that we're used to. You want to be confident in the products that you have so that you don't have gaps or challenges that come up later on. You can plan ahead for these things. Another potential challenge that many retirees or investors may face is understanding where your advice is coming from. It's crucial to know where you're getting your financial advice from and understand the motives behind the financial professional who's giving you the advice. Make sure that you understand how your professional is getting paid and thoroughly understand the products or the services that they represent. Trust and respect are both really important factors in deciding which financial professionals you choose to work with. So, by educating yourselves on the options available, you can become more confident in choosing which financial professional you work with. For instance, I'm a fiduciary advisor, and being a fiduciary advisor means that the work that I do with my clients has a high standard, and I have to do what's in my client's best interest. So you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who's always doing what's in your best interests. And fiduciary advisors do that. In today's world, it's critical that you know who you can trust, and that's really hard to discern, especially in the type of society that we're in today. But if you're going to trust someone with your financial life, you've got to make sure that you've done your homework. Just as you would in any other area of your life. With Amazon, when you purchase something, you probably read the reviews on it or see how many stars it has. When taking into account any advice or strategies, be sure that the source that's giving you the information is reliable and you know where they are getting their information. Whether dealing with your finances, your health, your children, your mental state, it's sometimes difficult for the general public to know who to believe and who to trust. And I just want to stress that when you meet with a financial professional, make sure to find out what they represent, how they get paid, what their background is, why they're here, how they can help you. The bottom line is to take the time to educate yourself and to know the source of any financial advice. Another important factor to consider is what financial vehicles you're utilizing and how do these vehicles meet your risk tolerance, your income needs, and your legacy desires. Many individuals may overlook challenges that may be appropriate to make, especially as you near retirement age. Now, remember, there's something called the rule of 100. I think I spoke about it in a previous podcast, but the rule of 100 is generally used as a starting point for discussing how much of your assets would be exposed to market risk versus other more conservative vehicles. The general rule says 100 minus your age is the percent of your assets that you can place in riskier vehicles. Of course, this is only a starting point, and your needs are probably going to vary from person to person. All of my clients are different, so you want to make sure that you understand that you need to take that rule with a grain of salt, but it's a good way to get started to figure out maybe what your risk tolerance would be. I was actually just featured in an article in Forbes magazine that talks specifically about the different types of investing strategies and how you have to almost use each strategy to create the perfect portfolio for each individual. You can't just use their risk tolerance. You also need to take into consideration your goals, your objectives, your family life, how you want to use the money, what income sources you have. There's so many different things that come into creating a financial plan. You don't just want to use one general rule. Keep that in mind. Take those general rules with a grain of salt and incorporate all of them together when you're creating a financial plan. Strategic product allocation helps to provide diversification based on your unique tolerance. Diversification is always key to risk management, and it may be a critical component to your overall financial strategy. So, I guess the simple way of putting it is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Warren Buffett followed some simple rules to accumulate his wealth, and I'm compiling some of his words of wisdom to give you an overview. But rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Rule number 3, risk comes from not knowing what you're doing, which is why I'm having this podcast today. Make sure you're aware of all of these challenges that you could face throughout your retirement, how to overcome those challenges, and how to make sure your financial professional is working for you to create the portfolio that reflects your goals, your morals, your personality, your lifestyle, your family, and your needs. Rule number 4 is if you don't feel comfortable owning something for 10 years, then don't own it for 10 minutes. So, Warren Buffett is a financial genius, I would say. I'm a huge fan. I know a lot of my listeners are huge fans of Warren Buffett as well. So, these rules, although number 1 is to never lose any money, and number 2 is to never forget rule number 1, nobody ever wants to lose any money. But we also have to remember that having some risk could create some reward for us in our financial portfolios, just like in life, right? These are general rules that Warren Buffett used when he was referring to investing and not to the specific purchase of any products or services in particular. In Luke chapter 1, verse 45, he says, "Blessed are you who believed that what was spoken to you by the Lord would be fulfilled." On September 8th, which is coming up here really quickly, we celebrate the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This day is traditionally held as Mother Mary's birthday. And if you know me, you know that I just love birthdays. Birthdays are the best days ever. So to celebrate Mary's birthday, this day is traditionally held as her birthday. So what better opportunity to honor our Blessed Mother than to consider her as our role model in our lives? Even when it comes to investing, you can use our Blessed Mother as a wonderful example of how you want to be in your life. And as an investor, you can use our Blessed Mother as a sample or an example, the best one that you could possibly find, of how to model your life and your finances. So be prayerful, be faithful, and invest with intent. Thanks for listening to the Welka Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Welka. God bless you, and God bless your families.
The Welka Wealth Podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all your favorite podcasting apps. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Just look for the Welka Wealth Podcast and keep listening.